Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Following the lead of many other shows, this year's East LA CAPE is going digital. The East Los Angeles Comic Book Art and Pop Culture Expo, or CAPE for short, was founded in 2016 by a group of pop culture and comic book fans who grew up in East LA. Headed by Peter J. Malini, who owns Nostalgic Books and Comics in San Diego, California, the show is dedicated to creating community and bringing together artists and vendors from our surrounding neighborhoods so that we can all enjoy the art that our community has to offer, and to connect you to independent artists so that you can support their work. This is our 14th episode of our Virtual Artist Alley, where we will be highlighting our community of artists and vendors. Barbra Dillion is the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Fanbase Press, an Eisner Award-nominated publishing company that seeks to produce new and distinctive works that give voice to the themes, ideals, and people that make geekdom so exceptional. She is also the director of marketing operations for Gemelli Biotech, as well as a voiceover actress, with credits including the Katniss Chronicles, where she plays Katniss Everdeen, and Pendant Audio's Phantom Canyon, where she plays Clara. Joining us here today, we have Barbra Dillion with Fanbase Press. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Barbra.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's good to see you both.
Good to see you. So normally we start asking people how they got into art, but you're a different situation altogether.
You would not want to see my stick figures even. They're terrible.
So I guess what we could ask is, how did you get into comics?
Sure, that's a great question. So to go to the Wayback Machine, I grew up in my parents' mom and pop convenience store with like the old spinner rack and the magazine racks and everything. So comics were a part of my life from early on. But I guess it wasn't until college that I kind of got a renewed interest and really got introduced to the world of comics and the spectrum of how many different genres there are and different age appropriate material. And that really piqued my interest. And so in 2010 is when we actually launched our company. Then it was called Fanboy Comics. We have since rebranded to Fanbase Press. But for us, it was because Bryant, my husband and I, who is my partner in Fanbase Press, we are both creators ourselves. We have stories that we want to tell, but also I grew up in the arts. I have an older brother who is an actor and a writer. And so I have always wanted to help creative people to do what they love. That is my passion in life, and that's what brings me fulfillment. So through Fanbase Press, we have been able to not only tell our stories, but to help other people share their stories. And even when we're not publishing something, to give a platform and a voice to everyone to be able to share the stories that they have within them and the lived experiences that they have. So really, that's why we say that we both celebrate fandoms and create new ones, because not only are we creating content, but we really want to celebrate everybody and what their individual story is.
Fantastic answer. Thank you for that. Usually we ask people what services they have, but I'm actually really curious about the publishing process. So I have absolutely no idea how one would go from, I have an idea for a story, I wrote it down, my friend is drawing it. How would someone get it published? Like, how would they attract the attention of a press like you? Or like, how would that even work?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So I think the great answer is, in terms of publishing right now, there are limitless opportunities. And what's really great is that it used to be really challenging to be able to find a publisher to publish your work. Because it meant a lot of money to print things. Digital was not an option. But now, because of so many different internet-based and web-based digital options, self-publishing, as well as submitting to everyone from like a boutique publisher like Fanbase Press to, the big two, and then the more independent presses like Dark Horse, IDW, Image, there are limitless opportunities available. So in terms of Fanbase Press, what we do is that because we're a boutique publisher, we're really only able to take on so many projects at a time because of our not only our resources, but we want to make sure that we're not doing a disservice to the creators themselves and the projects we've taken on. So we'd like to not bite off more than we can chew. But we are very much a one-stop shop at Fanbase Press. And by that, I mean, we have folks who bring stories to us that are just the germ of an idea. We have some folks who bring a script to us. We have some folks who bring a whole artistic team. We've even once had almost a nearly complete graphic novel. So it really is dependent upon the project. There's no part of the process that we require. We don't, I know some companies require you have to have your team in place. You have to have all of your work completed before you submit it. But for us, as long as a story really has resonant characters and an impactful theme or message or storyline, that's what really interests us. So as long as we have the resources available and it meets that criteria, then it would be appropriate for Fanbase Press. But we will work with them throughout the entire development process. We do all full marketing. In the time pre-COVID, we would take it to conventions to sell and promote. We do sales. We get it on Comixology, Hoopla for libraries as well. So we do absolutely everything.
So yeah, I think you just announced the Hoopla deal. So can you tell us a little bit about that, like how it came about and what people could expect?
Absolutely. So for those unfamiliar, Hoopla is a digital streaming platform utilized essentially by libraries here in the US. And so Hoopla, you can get, if you go to your library or if you go online and have a library card, you're able to access not only books, ebooks, and comic books, but you can get TV, you can get audio books, audio drama. The sky is the limit. And so we were connected with Hoopla, especially because of our work on the series Quince. And they really were interested in our entire catalog. So we now have all of our comics and graphic novels available on Hoopla. So as long as you have a library card, you can go online and check it out, which has been really fantastic because we have been doing a really hard push to bring not only Quince, but all of our comics and graphic novels to educators, to librarians, because that's such a different audience than necessarily would go into a comic book shop. I mean, obviously we love local comic book shops and we want to support them, but there are so many readers who have a barrier or are unfamiliar with comic book shops, but do have a library card and do utilize their local library. So we want to make sure that these stories reach those individuals as well.
Does Hoopla allow you to look at metrics? Like, can you see which books are read more often or how long people stay logged on reading it?
They do. I'm not entirely sure in terms of the latter question about how long they stay on reading it, but we do get to see the circulation numbers in terms of which books are circulating where, how many times are they requested. So it's been, honestly, we've loved the working relationship that we've had with Hoopla so far, and they've been really fantastic in terms of exactly what you're asking of providing that statistical information.
Cool. So we talked about how like this is your 10th year anniversary of the studio.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff do you guys have in the works to celebrate that?
Absolutely. Well, I have some show and tell items that I brought with me today. So the first one is that, and I'll hold it up close to the camera. This is our Fanbase Press 10th anniversary enamel pin, designed by Oceana Ransford, who not only did our Fanbase Press logo, but our updated 10th anniversary logo as well. And he works on almost all of our books as well. He's a fantastic graphic designer and letterer. But we wanted to have a pin that not only celebrates our staff and our contributors who work so hard, as well as, of course, our creators, but all of the fans and readers and listeners who have supported us throughout the past 10 years. Because one of the most important things for us throughout our entire time in business is that we provide a safe and positive space for everyone to be a fan of what they are a fan of. So this has really been one of the milestones that we hope to celebrate. And it's only $10. It's available at our website, fanbasepress.com, in our online store. So that is still available. The other big thing right now that we are talking about, and you can get it at Nostalgic Books and Comics, by the way, is Quince, the definitive bilingual edition. This is our hardcover edition, which contains not only the full English language version of the Eisner-nominated series, but for the very first time in print, if you flip the book over, you get the entire book in Spanish as well. And it's got really fantastic additional content in terms of forewords by Gloria Calderon-Kellett from One Day at a Time, Peter Murrieta from Mr. Iglesias. We've got a study guide by Dr. Teresa Rojas, who works at Modesto Junior College. Eisner winner Frederick Luis Aldama wrote an academic essay in here. We've also got an art gallery with artists like Javier Hernandez and Jose Cabrera. And of course, a letter from the creator, Sebastian Kadlachik, about why it was important to bring this story to life, to talk about his heritage and his family. So this is also available as well. Those are the big things right now.
So I'm curious, how did the Katniss Chronicles come about?
Yes, that is a wonderful question. So for those unfamiliar, the Katniss Chronicles is a fan-made audio drama that adapted the Hunger Games books into audio drama format many, many years ago. It seems like forever ago, before the movies came out, actually. I first read the Hunger Games books and absolutely fell in love. And my husband and I, as well as some creator friends, were talking, and we wanted to be able to share this story with other people in a different format. And we thought that audio drama was a great way to do it. So we pretty faithfully adapted all 3 books into, I think, over 70 episodes. And we released 1 per week, all of them before the movies came out, as to not conflict with anything going on with the movies. And for those unfamiliar with audio drama, it's very much like a movie, except without the visuals. So we have a full cast of characters, a full score, sound effects. It's really exciting and remarkable. But we've had great success, especially with educators, actually, because they can pair, for their students, they can pair the Hunger Games books to the audio drama for those that might be struggling with reading comprehension. So it was such a labor of love and such a good time. One of the most rewarding projects I've ever worked on.
What about the character attracted you to that? Because you play Katniss, correct?
I do. You know, it's interesting, and that's a great question. I very interestingly have never really identified with a lot of female characters in literature. And even though I was an adult when I read The Hunger Games and they're geared towards a YA audience, there was really something specific that stuck out to me about Katniss. And I think especially in the world of superheroes that we live in right now, individuals with extraordinary abilities, what struck me is that Katniss was a normal or average young woman. She didn't necessarily, other than being able to hunt really well, she really didn't have any special abilities or anything that made her extraordinary, except for who she was as a person. And that really struck a chord with me, and I really identified with the character. And I just loved the books, and Suzanne Collins had so many amazing and impactful themes that were imparted in the book. As well as in the new book, which I just engulfed. I loved it. It was so amazing. But being able to portray the character in audio drama allowed me to connect with the character in a way that I never thought possible. And I'm sure that any of your viewers who might be performers themselves and know that the depth that you have to go to kind of get in touch with that character, I think that's part of why it was such a rewarding experience, because it's just more in-depthly connected me with that character.
I read The Hunger Games, I think, after a while of like not reading fiction. And so I was like kind of coming back to like, okay, I got to read something for fun. I'd been reading stuff for school for such a long time. I'm like, so one of the things that I found really interesting that I liked about the character was her hesitancy to be the hero. Like, I felt that was very, like, if you are called, you know, to act, that is a very normal reaction to just be like, how about I don't want to do this? How about I want to hide in a closet and like avoid my duties. And that is a very real, I think, like even with the pandemic, that is a very real reaction where we're like, you know what, not right now. I'm going to hide here in this here closet and just give me a second. Okay. I'll lead the revolution in a second. I just need to sit in this closet right now.
Absolutely. And I think to the book's testament as well, I think that that's really what they hone in on as well, that exact quality of her, that she's not looking to use this analogy again, she's not looking to be the superhero. She's not looking to get the accolades or to be in the limelight. Far from it. She wants to be as far away from it as possible. But because of who she is deep down, when forced into extraordinary circumstances, what makes her extraordinary really, really shines and comes through.
That's real cool. And so I know that podcasting is also part of Fanbase Press. Like you have a big section of that. I wonder if we could talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our full podcast network, which has about 5 or 6 shows right now. Our flagship podcast is the Fanbase Weekly. This is a roundtable discussion that we do every week. We bring on a special guest from all areas and avenues of geekdom. So it can not just be comics, but we've had folks from movie and TV, books, theater, gaming, you name it. And we talk about our 4 top news stories from geek headlines, and we really try to diversify what those headlines are. So again, it's not just, hey, what trailer came out this week, but what are, some exciting science related news that came out? What is NASA working on? Or how does the layoff at Warner Brothers in DC, how does that impact the industry, and what does that mean? And the reason that we do that is we like to, rather than some shows, which we value as well, rather than just being a show that highlights the promotional aspects of what the creator might be working on that is the guest, we like to be able to give our listeners a more in-depth look into who the creator is, what they have to say, their thoughts, their opinions, and it's a lot of fun for us. And of course, we get to keep our listeners updated on what's going on in various avenues of geekdom. But that's our main podcast, but we've got the Arkham Sessions podcast, which if you're a fan of Batman and or psychology, Dr. Drea Letamendi and Brian Ward have gone through every episode of Batman the Animated Series and analyzed it from a clinical lens. So that's really fascinating. But we've got Finding Felicity, where we have a host and special guests go through every episode of the TV show Felicity and talk about their own experiences going through college and coming of age and what that was like. But we've got a whole host of podcasts, and we really, again, just with all of our online content as well as our publishing, we try to diversify that as much as possible so that there's something for everybody.
That's super cool. I feel like somewhere out there, I can almost imagine the conversation someone had of, we should watch every episode of Felicity and do a podcast on it.
Yes, absolutely. Teresa Giacino is the host, and she brought the podcast to us, and it's just really phenomenal, and it's so fun. I had not watched any Felicity. I was completely unfamiliar with it, so it's been a lot of fun to listen to.
Well, I remember I did a school paper one time where we had to analyze anything. It was the point was to learn how to analyze, so we could pick any topic, anything, and I picked the X-Files because I was just watching it a lot of the time. So it was a weird thing to take on this weird academic lens to a show. And then once you start going down that road, right, I found out that there was actually a good amount of people that wrote these philosophical takes on shows. And apparently a very popular one to analyze was Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And I was like, what have I been missing? I'd never really watched. I've watched episodes here and there, but I feel like I've been missing out in academia. I should have become a Buffy expert. There would have been somewhere out there for me. But that's super cool. This is something that we've been kind of asking a lot of people. How has the pandemic kind of affected you guys' work? I feel like some feedback that we've been getting, it's been making people more productive, some less productive, some have refocused, their efforts on themselves, some have refocused all that attention into their art. Or how do you think how has your life been since March?
it's definitely been challenging. I mean, I want to be honest and forthcoming that it's, first, I do feel grateful in that both my husband and I maintain full-time jobs in addition to our work with Fanbase Press. So we're very grateful to have that source of income and protection for ourselves. But in terms of Fanbase Press, we have had to find different avenues of revenue because a lot of our sales came from in-person conventions. So we have launched different initiatives, including advertising on our podcast. We have a monthly creator forum, which is very much akin to, if you're familiar with the master classes that you can take online. It's an online seminar that we do once a month. And also things like Hoopla. Being able to diversify towards digital content in addition to our existing relationship with Comixology. But I think, going back to your question, I think that for all of us, I mean, we all might be in, to use a strange analogy, we might be in different ships. What we're going through individually is different for everyone, and how we're developing and processing what's going on is going to be different for everybody. But for us, we've tried to provide a support system for our readers and listeners, as well as our creators and staff. We do weekly creator forum meetups where we just, every Saturday morning for free, everyone is welcome to talk about how they're doing, what they're learning about comics, different things that they're trying right now to see what works, and just what the path forward is in a positive way. So, and it's, there may be days that are more challenging than others, but I think that as long as we maintain that sense of community and maintain that sense of being able to reach out to one another and not feel lost and not feel alone in it, I feel like that is going to be our way forward, because it can be a really lonely thing being in isolation right now, or feeling like you have the weight of the world on you. But I think that as long as we can maintain those relationships and maintain communication, then we'll be able to weather the storm.
I love that idea of meeting up every Saturday. How did that come about, or how does somebody get involved with that if that's this kind of support that they're looking for?
Yeah, my husband and I just were talking when all of this was starting about what we could do, because not everything for us was, oh goodness, it's all about revenue and it all is about money. For us, it is all about community, and it's always going to be about that. So we wanted to do something to give back and to help ourselves, in addition to have, that connection that we miss from conventions. So we do weekly Zoom calls, and it's free for everyone. And anyone in any avenue of comics, whether you're a writer or a creator, illustrator, if you're a publisher, we've had on educators, librarians, people from the media. Anyone is welcome to join. It's very informal. It's an hour-long discussion every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And we start off by talking about, hey, do you have any positive news from this week, or is there anything positive you want to talk about? And we talk about everything from, the recent layoffs with DC and whether folks have been impacted. We talk about what folks are trying in terms of virtual conventions, what works, what doesn't, how they're staying positive. I mean, sometimes you can get a sense right from the beginning of the call that folks really just need to talk. And we just kind of geek out about stuff sometimes. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be, it's not that you have to come prepared. You don't have to do any work in advance of the call. It really is just about come have a positive, safe space. It's not recorded. It's, everyone's confidentiality is kept. And if you just need a place to unwind or relax or be able to bounce ideas off of people, then absolutely anyone is welcome.
Cool. So speaking of moving forward, anything we could talk about as far as like what's coming out for Fanbase Press in the next couple months or maybe next year?
Absolutely. So we right now have a project called Nuclear Power in the Works. And it's an amazing team. Erica Harrell and Desiree Proctor are the writers, and Lynn Yoshi is the illustrator. All three came from the DC Talent Workshop, so they're top-notch creators in their own rights. It's amazing. But it's an alternate history tale of the Cuban Missile Crisis. So imagine if instead of what actually happened, the bomb had been dropped, what would happen. And it's honestly and kind of scary in the sense of as we see the development process and as we are living through what we're living through, it's a very prescient story. But it's all about our rights as individuals and what democracy means to us and what our democratic values mean to us and who we are as individuals and people, but also as a community. But it's also, unfortunately, about how far a government will go to deceive its citizens. But I very much compare it to, it's like the X-Men meets the Handmaid's Tale. So that gives you kind of a flavor of what it's about. But Desiree and Erica both have Cuban heritage. So this was a really important story for them to be able to tell about what an immigrant experience is like and what it is to be othered. So we really wanted that to be a part of the story as well.
That sounds like an amazing story. I can't wait for that one to come out. I already can think of a couple of people that I want to show that story to. I think that is all the questions I have, Peter.
No, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for taking the time to sit with us today. We really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you. Thank you both for your time, and I hope that you're both staying healthy and safe in these challenging times.
Yeah, you too.